Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week here at the RGM Experience podcast with me, Carl Maloney. How are you doing? You all right? As always on this podcast, we like to delve into the music industry, speak to people that have got stories, and just delve into what the real world is like. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to be joined by Joe Carnall Jr. Hi, mate. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm always.
I've had a shower for you, actually.
Have you? Very nice.
Yeah,
Very
it's
nice.
half term, so normally I won't bother, but yeah, put a frock on for you.
I'm always fascinated when somebody's got junior at the end of the name, mate.
Yeah. All right, fair enough.
What's that all about, first of all?
There is a reason. I mean, I'm partially some sort of stagecraft going on. I mean, it's hardly Elton John, is it, or Stevie Wonder? It's a start. That came about actually because my granddad, who passed away a couple of years ago now, he's also called Joe Carnall. Or he was also called Joe Carnall. And we were going to get into this later on, weren't we? In the podcast, the Arctic Monkeys thing, which inevitably haunts me like a ghost.
Yes, fair enough.
But even more so because my cousin's the bass player. I don't know if you knew that. So our Nick's the bass player in the Monkeys, and I can't remember what year it was, but we went down London to watch them at, I think, in Shepherd's Bush or somewhere. I don't know, some monster arena as usual. And with Nick being in the band, a lot of my family went down. So my other cousins and my nan and granddad. My granddad went to the guest list before me, and took my guest list.
Right.
Because we've got the same name. It was at that point, I think we need to do something about this. So I had to distinguish myself from my granddad because they wouldn't let me into the gig. So he'd taken my space, unbeknownst to him, because he just rocked up and said his own name as he, do you not know?
You didn't get in there?
I managed to get in.
You managed,
not to worry. I had to get Nick to run from the dressing room, but yeah, it was at that moment I thought, oh, we can't have this again. I just, you know what, when I put Junior at the end of it, it just reminds me of my granddad, to be honest. It's quite a nice thing to do.
Yeah, well, online you retweeted a picture of you, the old Milburn lads from 2005, knocking about on a football pitch, and you were taking piss out that you had at the time.
Yeah, so, the jeans. I mean,
I remember those days, man. I remember those fucking flared jeans, and
This is it. Everyone on Twitter is like slagging us off for the jeans, and obviously I was too. But everybody were at it. It weren't just everybody's doing it. We used to, I don't know if you remember, like just constantly standing on your jeans. And them being absolutely disgusting, but that were cool apparently, and everyone used to do it. But,
and the footwear, it took me back because I was a lad at a similar age to you guys at the time with the flared jeans, with the ridiculous footwear for old times, but
that were an age where you couldn't get in places without shoes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it would be a bit of a 50-50 gamble where, if you can get into like a Leadmill or maybe not Leadmill, but pubs and what have you. So maybe it stemmed from a bit of that. But yeah, now you just look like someone who goes to watch rugby union, don't you?
Well, the secret I always had for that, because I remember it very well, is wear black socks and put your black socks over your trainers.
Oh, nice.
And they never notice that you're not wearing shoes.
No, and then as soon as you get in.
Yeah, sort them out. You sort of.
Yeah. So, well. if I had a time machine, I'd be buying loads of black socks.
Brilliant. Well, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back to a young Joe Carnall before you were into music and stuff. What were you like as a kid growing up in? Did you grow up in Sheffield?
Yeah, I grew up in Chapeltown,
right,
North Sheffield, and then basically I've slowly worked my way into Sheffield Centre. And now I live in the posh end because I'm a twat. Yeah, I grew up in Chapeltown with my brother. Met the rest of the Milburn lads playing football. We always used to play on Sunday mornings for Ecclesfield Red Rose. And the band was something we did in the summer because we had nothing else to do. So as a lad, what was I like? Relatively, I weren't as much of a show off as you might think. I think I've blossomed into more of a show off. I was just, I was Mr. Average Joe. I was a nice, easygoing lad. I don't think I was too much trouble. And at school, I was pretty easygoing. Liked to play football. Okay at it, not particularly good. Poor left foot, bad in the air, not fast enough. Could see a pass. yeah, academically pretty average. And then
Mm.
I think I got to like year 9 or 10. And I really got into history.
Mm.
And I was really good at it, like scarily good. And that shocked me and everyone else because I'd just been so like under the radar. It was only my brother that was the smart one.
Mm.
Um, and I just and something switched when I realized I could actually figure out how to do these exams, and they're not that hard if you put your mind to it. And I ended up like really doing really well in my GCSEs, and then I did incredible at my A levels. And I got offered a place at Cambridge University
There we go.
to do
From
history.
Sheffield off to Cambridge. Wow.
Well, I'd sacked it off now
Okay, fair enough.
for a lifetime of disappointments in the music industry. But it was really strange. Yeah, nothing was ever really expected of me academically, and then I found something I was passionate about, history, at the same time as music, and those two things just took over my life.
Were there certain parts of history that grabbed you more than others?
I'm a modernist. I'm not. I can't be. I have to teach some of it, but I'm not big into like Tudors and Stuarts and stuff like. I can't. I don't know. Maybe just can't relate. I don't feel like a connection. There are obvious connections to be made, but in sort of in terms of a passion, I'm a modernist. Like World War One, interwar period, Spanish Civil War, World War Two, what came of it, civil rights, all that jazz, because it seems to have a proper bearing on where we are now. So yeah, and that's just something I will like music. I think it's just something I'll always be into now. It's just sort of ingrained in me. So much so that I teach it.
Was it all around you? Was music all around you while you were doing your history studies and that kind of stuff? Then how did you like you had this passion for history? What was music part of the history stuff as well, or was it more world activist type things?
Well, we grew up in a house which liked football. My dad was a good footballer, he says. We Sheffield Wednesday house,
Okay.
and music, and that was it. There was about 3 books in our house. And my mum and dad pretend that they always create an environment for me to thrive, but that's utter bollocks. I think I read about 3 books until I was about 16. So me being the middle class dad now, I'm trying to make my kids read all the time because it is kind of the secret to everything, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
So the history was not around me whatsoever, to be quite honest. I found that at school as a bit like it's like kind of like escapism, but music certainly was. My mum and dad always had decent taste in music, and I think that helps an awful lot.
What was the first band that you heard and you thought, ooh, it's affecting me?
Loads, but the earliest memories, my dad used to be, and he still is, massively into Thin Lizzy, the 70s rock group.
Nice.
Now people have perceptions about Lizzy, which I need to quash because, well, they sort of bundle them into this sort of like Larry guitar solo-y type pants thing, which there are elements of, and that was sort of a product of the era, wasn't it? But Phil Lynott, the lead singer and songwriter, was just he had an incredible ear for melody. You've got this guy who's like 6'3", he's mixed race lad with an afro from Dublin. Already it's like, oh God, who is this guy? Bass player, great voice, great melodies, and a lot of that Milburn nicked because we were all our dads listened to Lizzy growing up. And actually, with the Lizzy stuff, there's a guitar solo in every song, which is pretty annoying sometimes. You could if you just deleted them, and you can play songs on an acoustic, which sounds mad, but any song you can play on an acoustic, I think, or a piano, and it still works. It's a decent tune. So yeah, Lizzy was a big part. Clash, Jam, Beatles. George Michael.
How come you said Beatles like that then?
Because there's Abbey Road on your right.
Oh, right. Okay, fair enough. Right. Yeah, I always forget about that
thing. No, well, I think Beatles, it's just standard, isn't it? If you've not heard the Beatles by the time you're 16, something's got seriously wrong in your life, and I think the NSPCC should be called.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to listen to the Beatles. It's just the law. What else do we grow up with? And then we sort of, so that was like dad's and mum's record collection, amongst loads of other things I've not mentioned. And then we ended up, I think, growing up in a great time for music. So not 90s were a bit of a weird, early 90s were a bit of a weird time. Obviously, then we got Britpop, but we were kind of already 15, 16 by that point. I learned to play bass by trying to be Phil in it, but also like listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers, which might sound a bit weird for people because they definitely don't hear that in our music. But I think we were just sort of encouraged by the challenge because they're all great players.
Yeah.
And then we got well into like Rage Against the Machine, who were also all great players. So you just tried to mimic what they did and play as well as they could. And I think that sort of set us up for when we decided to do like an indie thing, because we could all play and we could kind of play better than most bands at the time, and we were the youngest. So when people saw us live, they thought we were great. Well, did they? Yeah, some did. Enough people thought we were good. Clearly.
Well, the origins of a band never cease to amaze me. Every time I speak to a band, well, a lot of time when I speak to bands, they all just say, "Oh yeah, we're like I presume for you guys, you all met playing football, and then you just said, let's start a band, and then it just happened."
Yeah, probably a little bit more difficult than that.
Yeah, well, that when bands tell me that kind of stuff, they kind of describe it that way, and I'm always interested in the mechanics of it, really, because it's never that easy.
No,
so how did it like blossom further for you guys to be something serious?
Yeah, well, I suppose when you're going through it, you don't step back and look at the sort of little moments that change everything.
Yeah.
I think most of the responsibles, Greenie, the drummer from Milburn, who was having drum lessons at the time, he was the one who could actually play something, and his dad used to be in bands, and he was a great guitarist. So I wasn't in the band at first, believe it or not. I was just the younger, annoying brother. The other three would get together at Greenie's Nan's loft of all places, and I don't know what they were playing. I mean, it would have been shit because I weren't there, but they were rehearsing stuff, and I think they realized they needed a bass player. And I don't know how the hell that became me. I had absolutely no interest in the bass at that point. I mean, this is when I was like 13.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what a bass was, to be quite honest. I didn't even know how to tune it. I just put the pegs so they looked like they did last week.
Right.
And nothing to do with the sound. And I just sort of got roped into it. I don't even think it was my choice, to be quite honest. And then the natural thing was, well, we're just playing these musical like interlude things or whatever, instrumentals. We need someone to sing, and no one would sing. And me, this is when I kind of think that I actually am a show off at heart. I must have been, because I went, I'll do it. Because maybe I'd done some like, I don't know, I think I was Elvis in Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat in year 6, and I got a bit of a buzz out of that.
You think you are? You don't know well you was.
I know. I had a big sequin suit on. I was Elvis, yeah. I was Elvis. Yeah. And I think I did some like a karaoke thing once, and I made people laugh, I think. Or I don't know if they were just gobsmacked. I don't know what we're doing, but it seemed to work. So maybe, obviously I didn't think about this at 13, 14 years old, but maybe there was something inside me which went like, yeah, I can do it. And I've always had this, this is what I want my kids to desperately have, because my wife doesn't have it. I've always had this self-belief, and I don't know why. And I don't think, I mean, other people might call it arrogance, which I don't think is fair. I just always believe that I could do something. Not like, go to the moon or anything, but if there's anything that needs learning or working out or figuring out or whatever, I'll do it. I'll have a go. At the very least, I will have a go at it. And just had a go at singing, and it worked. But that was probably more strength of belief in yourself than anything else.
And did you train the voice? Were you get up at karaoke and just have a burn after a few beers and that kind of stuff?
No.
Sing in the shower, anything like that? Any signs before?
No. I've never taken singing seriously until more. I'm not like I take it seriously now, but what used to happen, I mean, I don't know if your experience has been in bands, but you used to go in a studio, you'd spend like 3 days getting a fucking, sorry, I'm swearing a lot. Okay. Getting I shouldn't be swearing because I am a school teacher. Let's edit that. 3 days getting a flipping snare sound and then guitar, all hours and hours and hours, and then you'd whack the vocals on in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I just thought that's absolutely insane. That's the thing that your ears, as a human's, naturally drawn to, and we just used to rush the hell out of it. So now when I go in the studio, I do sort of give a lot more love to the vocals and think about backing vocals and whatnot.
So the origins of the band, you started playing in the loft.
Yeah.
Did you start writing your own stuff straight away, or were we just doing like a bit of or just playing around?
We just did covers, just sort of learn. Or we would write stuff, but we wouldn't never really show anybody. We just got really good at playing. And I think that sorted us out for when we actually started to write. So yeah, we first and foremost got really good at playing. So people, friends and family saw us live and we used to, do pretty well. And then we started to introduce, like, maybe we had a 15-song set. We'd do like 3 of our own, then 5 of our own, then 8, and then no covers whatsoever. And this is all taking place before I was 16. We did loads of gigs as I was growing up as a kid. And it just meant that by the time we sort of got to a place where we had something to write about, let's face it, we were a bit better placed musically.
What was Sheffield like around you at that time? Because just remembering back myself, I was in a band at a similar kind of time, just starting to piss about, doing the odd little demo down at Yellow Arch and just spending 300 quid and doing 3 songs in a day at Yellow Arch, just rushing out, just like recorded something, because it's nice, isn't it? What was it like? What was Sheffield like around you, music wise, for you lot at the time? For me, there wasn't much. It wasn't like post pulp and that kind of stuff. We were kind of waiting for something to happen in Sheffield, and it felt like it'd been a long time with nothing had really the new were pushing through into the mainstream type stuff.
I agree. Yeah, when we started, it just obviously this is like the calm before the storm, isn't it? But it just felt like there were loads of old people doing stuff, and that's because I was 14, 15, so everybody over the age of 22 was old to me. and I attribute a lot of that era's success to, obviously there's loads of respect now for these guys, and rightly so, but I couldn't give a shit about pulp when I was growing up. I was like anti-pulp. I saw this bloke who I think, I've now grown to realize is an incredible frontman, an incredible person and songwriter. But I saw Jarvis Cocker as, what's he poncing around up there for? That they were just like anti where I was from in the city, what I did, the friends I surrounded myself with, wrongly. But what it did do is it gave us a bit of a fire to do something for ourselves. And I think in the wake of the Monkees and the New Yorkshire thing and all those bands that came with it, I think a lot of the younger bands have made the mistake of just trying to do what we did. If I'm a new band coming from Sheffield, I don't play a guitar pretty much, or I really change what we're about, because you're never going to be able to recreate what happened, between 2003 and 2006 in this city. It was incredible. So you've kind of got to do your own thing. So I think we were trying to be anti-pulp, definitely anti-Def Leppard, definitely not Human League or Heaven 17 or any of that. Now I'd bloody love to do it. But I think that set us apart a bit and made us feel young and different. I think, have I answered your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. And you're just talking about what Sheffield like around you. Perfect.
So it seemed to be like people in bands were a lot older than us, and we didn't feel like they represented us. And then fast forward 18 months, and then the world turned on its head.
When was the first time that you started to realize that, we've got some traction here as a band? And you start, you mentioned yourself, you whittled down the cover songs. The crowds kept coming. It felt like, you were doing your own stuff, and they weren't just here. It weren't just family and friends coming to see you. There were more people coming to see you. How did that feel as a band to start thinking, there's something in it here. We've got a little bit of traction here.
I'd say, like, to any aspiring artist or band, the moment you get someone stood in front of you who you don't know singing your song back to you, it's the start of the addiction for me. Because that gave me a real, like, buzz. I couldn't believe how something I'd been a part of had an effect on someone to sing those words. Because you think about it, you've got to either be like pretty drunk or really into something, as I would say a northern man, to go and stand in a room and then give your heart to something. Does that make sense? Don't want to sound like a Luddite or a Neanderthal, but I think there's some truth in that. Like, if I go and commit and sing my heart out to something, I've got to bloody love it, or it's 3 a.m. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, that moment where some stranger stood on this front row that I've never met, singing my words or our words back to us, that became a bit of a, looking back, a bit of a drug. And I wanted to play in bigger rooms in front of more people and write some more songs.
Where was it? And was it like Grapes, Boardwalky type of place?
It would have been Grapes and Boardwalk. Yeah, they were the first haunts for everybody who was young enough to miss the upstairs room in the Grapes. You missed a trick there because
Yeah.
we don't have those rooms anymore. I don't think. Well, I'm saying this. Venues across the city will be screaming at me. So that's probably false what I've just said, but I don't know. There was just something magical about the Grapes, and obviously it's nostalgia for me, and it's me looking back. But to have a boozer downstairs and a little room with a venue upstairs, and it's where Milburn played the first gigs. It's where Monkeys played the first gigs. We did a couple of gigs together up there. Yeah, just pretty special. And obviously, shout out to the Boardwalk as well, which was integral to bringing all these bands on that you now know.
Well, I remember playing the Grapes many times with Ash, the sound guy. Just
yeah.
Everything sounded wrong.
Yeah, he wasn't a happy chap, was he?
You were funny.
Yeah, but he was one of those guys, and you have it, don't you? You will have it in every music scene. Oh yeah, he once went on tour with whatever, who supported U2's dog or something. I don't know. And as kids, you're like, oh my god, he knows what he's doing. When in actual fact, did he? None of us did, and that's fine.
Well, I saw Richard Hawley's he's doing like a little thing at the Grapes soon, or it might have happened.
Oh, is it?
Like
he's got his best of, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got his best of album out, and he's doing I think it's like a competition thing just for a few people downstairs in Grapes, because that venue, people of a certain age like myself, we look fondly back at the Grapes, and it probably wasn't appreciated as much as what it is now. I actually tried to go down and do some filming, and I went upstairs, and it's an old lady's flat now, that the venue bit.
Yeah.
Oh, landlady's flat, I think. So that it is nostalgic, and it is. But
hopefully, like a new generation will find the new haunts and their new places to go, and it should have nothing to do with me. And I'm kind of a big believer in that. You know what I mean? They shouldn't want me cluttering it up. Not that music should have an age on it. And,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Though I think there's a bit of magic in that, like youth thing and. Having your own places is sort of counter sort of culture to what you've known before.
Yeah, well, the Monkeys supported my band the first ever gig they played at the Grapes upstairs.
Did they?
Yeah, that's like my story that I've dined on for.
I'm gonna say that sounds. It's a bit like the Sex Pistols one, isn't it? Is it the Free Trade Hall or something? Where
all the Sheffield, all Manchester.
Everybody, we've all got a Monkeys story.
Good days. So I can remember seeing Milburn start selling out venues, and we played the Grapes, we played the Boardwalk, and we actually supported you guys at the Boardwalk when you'd sold it out. So it was like as a support band, it was like massive for us to be playing to more than 25 people at the Boardwalk when we didn't even know people stood at the back of the Boardwalk. So it was a long, thin venue.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
We can just remember people it stood at the front a little bit, but it goes right far to the back. And I could just remember trying to walk to Bogfront backstage bit, and it took about an hour because it was just that rammed to get, and it was that hard work to get through the crowd. I'm like, this is something going on here. That must have been nice for you guys to sell out.
Yeah, I think
selling out gigs and get to that stage.
Yeah, there's a lot put on to selling stuff out. To put that sellout sticker on a gig is a lovely feeling. It's a bit of an ego trip, but you don't have to do it to have a great gig. But the first time or first few times you do it, and it's like nothing else, is it? It's a little bit like football, or maybe theatre, but not quite. It's a bit more raucous when you walk into a room that's full of people all anticipating something. There's something. I mean, I'm not into what's the best phrase for this? I'm not into sort of magic or I'm not a believer in the spirit world or anything like that. But I do think when you walk into a room full of people that are ready for a gig, there's something in the air. There's some electricity, and I don't think I sound a bit crazy saying that. I think most people would agree. But then I read something this morning. Johnny Marrs released a book about his guitars, and he said something ridiculous like the Smith songs were in that guitar before I even owned it. And I just,
right.
I was like, shut up, mate. But I do believe that like a big sporting event or a gig, those two things, that there's just something like when you walk. For example, when I walked into Hillsborough on that League One second leg semi-final against Peterborough, it just felt like something was going to happen, and it did. And it's the same with gigs. You feel like something's special, and selling out kind of increases your chances of having that.
What would you like? We mentioned that picture that you posted from 2005. What would you say to those boys now, with all the history and all the new chapters that you've had in your life post Milburn? What would you say to those boys?
I'd say sort your jeans out.
Yeah, straight away.
Take the leather shoes off. You don't need them, mate. You don't need them.
You're on a football pitch with leather shoes. What are you thinking?
Yeah, idiot. What would I say to him? I don't know. I would say enjoy it more is what I would say. I did for a long time look back at that period, when I was closer to it, feeling frustrated with it, and unsatisfied, and I felt like we didn't get what we deserved. Now I don't feel like that at all, but I think it ate away at us because every interview I do always goes in this direction, and I don't have a problem with that because what happened in Sheffield at that time with the Arctic Monkeys it will never be repeated. But them coming along was amazing. They deserved everything they got, but it seemed to be that there was only room in the national and international media for one Sheffield band, and we quickly got painted as these sort of like Monkeys wannabes. Whereas anybody who took 10 minutes just to dig a little deeper would have realised we were around before them. We were doing our own thing. We did gigs together. We sort of, when they do some demos, we'd hear it and go, "That's good. Let's do something better, or let's try and match it." That's how scenes evolve. And if you zoom in any other part of the country, there are multiple bands doing things, and that's how you get your momentum. And they just happen to be doing something incredible. Well, I'm not going to try and challenge that at all. But it just seemed that if it's happening in London, it's the scene and it's cool. If it's happening in Manchester, it's the scene and it's cool. If it's happening in Liverpool, it's the scene and it's cool. If it's happening in Sheffield, sorry, we're full, lads. We've got one of you.
Interesting.
And I don't know. I felt a little like we'd underachieved. I think we had a lot of potential. I still believe the people in that band are very talented, and they'll all go on and have gone on to do their own thing. But I think you only get one moment. Well, that was our moment. I don't think you can't ever recreate those forces being around, and the age of everybody and where the media's attention were. So I spent a long time feeling a bit unfulfilled by it. So I would tell those lads to smarten up, get a grip, and stand back and just see what you did actually achieve and enjoy it. And I think that was probably the main reason why we split up. Because time's a weird thing, isn't it? It bends and it morphs and it changes as you get older. And everything. I mean, I was 21 when we split up, so I'd done all. Pretty much. We've been together for 5 or 6 years, and I was still only 21. But that was everything to me, and that was my life, and it felt like a long time. Whereas now it was ridiculous to look back and think that's a chunk of your life, because it's not. You blink and you're 21.
I look back at myself at 21 and think I didn't know who I were. I didn't know anything. To have that kind of, I can appreciate the frustrations around you, around seeing your noisy neighbours over there, just getting everything that happened to him, and then there's no room for, "Hi guys, we were here first" type thing. We're doing good stuff too. Taking its toll on you all as well. Really.
When you're
at such a young age.
You're more vulnerable, aren't you? You're more vulnerable to what someone might write about you. You're more vulnerable to getting ignored. Whereas actually, I really couldn't care less now. And then when you can't care less, things tend to happen to you. Actually, I think what I would say is just stand back and look at what you have achieved and what we have done and what we continue to do. Is I always equate it to football. I know it's just simplistic knuckle drag at me, but essentially we got to play professional football. We got to play at a good standard. We had a bitten someone's hand off to play for a team in League One. I had a bitten someone's hand off at 10 years of age. The problem was we've got our mates who were winning the Champions League. Um, you know, and when you compare yourself that way, it was hard to take, but we did and have done and continue to do amazing things that we should be grateful for.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I found it interesting in a future episode of the podcast.
Yeah, that's me being Zen, by the way.
There you go. Okay, fair enough. On the, it's already been recorded, and I had a chat with a mutual friend of ours, Rob Nicholson, that was in the Monkeys at the time, and he said something interesting to me around your circle of friends. So John Rev, you played in Rev and the Makers, all that kind of stuff. John Windle, Little Man Tate, Harrison's at the time. All these people within the Sheffield music community, and you guys are close friends. You've got a community there still. They found it really interesting that and there's only your group of friends really has this. I don't know if the right word is to call it a cloud, but the relationship with the Arctic Monkeys surrounds your friendship, your close friendship. So
yeah, so
he found that quite interesting and can take its toll as well sometimes as well on top of it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of sort of casualties from that era, in a light-hearted and quite a serious matter. It's like a shared experience, isn't it? And everything you did was defined against them.
Yeah,
it'd have been great if like one of us was a chef and the other one was a photographer at the time, or another one was an artist, a painter, because then there wouldn't be a comparison. There'd be a nice creative scene, but we were all in bands. Yeah. And I think it didn't just happen to the likes of Milburn. When we speak about this a lot, when you look back, there's people that aren't with us anymore. There's people that really struggled with it. And this is not even just people in the bands. It's people who did merch for the bands. It's people who came to the gigs, because when you're 16 and your experiences, 16 to 20, I suppose, are like touring and playing in front of thousands of people, what happens when that gets taken away and that stops? You think, you don't appreciate it. You're like, well, you want more. And it's really hard to get your head round. Whereas if it happens later in your 20s, you know what life's about. You know it ain't always going to be this way. Just go and enjoy it. And yeah, Rob's probably right. We all sort of wanted a bit, and we all thought we could have it. And the truth is, you can't. There can only be for bands of that level. There's not much room. So yeah, it was almost too close. We could touch it. We could feel it. We were a part of it. But it does leave a bit of a wake.
Yeah.
Destructive wake.
And you mentioned it, all your interviews tend to go this way. It's just people are fascinated, aren't they, with the relationship with it all. Does ever get a little bit like, I'd rather not talk about Arctic Monkeys this time?
Yeah, it does. But they are one of the biggest bands in the world.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. And I'm not up my arse enough to think that.
So
that doesn't matter.
So
it's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so Melbourne stopped then. Did you move away from music completely then when the band split up? Was it 2008? 2008.
Yeah, we did our last gig in May 2008. We threw the toys out of the pram. Oh, that's it. We're done.
Okay.
And we sold the academy out in ridiculously quick time. And they even asked us to do another one. And we're like, no, this is the last one. Like, we honestly, at that age, which is the right thing, we couldn't care less about money. We got really good offers on the table. Like, nope, not doing it. We're doing one last gig, which I'm proud of us for doing that, actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, it wasn't the last gig, was it?
Oh, I remember when you did like 5 or 6 in a row when you came back, didn't you?
But we'd changed by that point. We'd changed. Yeah, we'd changed. We needed a new bathroom, so and I think we deserved. Deserved it. We kind of got what we deserved in the end. So what was the question?
So you split up in 2008. You did that last gig.
Yeah.
Then what did you move into? You put the guitar down.
Split up in May, and I signed on to a degree course at Sheffield University in September. It was that quick. Just as soon as I knew that was going to be our last gig, I like, what's next? So I signed up to the history course. I kind of probably was always destined to go on. Yeah. Still doing some music. I did a couple of records, or like 1.5 records with the book club, which were my mates from school, who I lived with throughout university. So we enjoyed that. We did a few cool things, and we never really got going. And then sort of life caught up with us. Once you finish your degree, people are having to get jobs, and it gets really hard going down to a cold and wet practice room on a Tuesday night when you've got to be up in the morning. But yeah, I enjoyed the book club stuff. Was fun. It was just really fun because we were all sort of mates, not mates by choice, as opposed to the Milburn stuff, which is kind of like Kings of Leon. The Milburn stuff, it's like you're kind of family, and you spend half your time bickering. Um, yeah, so the book club stuff was fun, and then I did a masters because I didn't not know what to do, and at that point, that's when John rang me about playing for Rev. So that kind of the Rev stuff scratched an itch for quite a while. While in my private life and personal life, I went into teaching, and got married and had kids and all that sort of thing. But I was always doing something. I was always writing. I was always playing. And then eventually I got myself together enough to sort my first Good Cop Bad Cop record out because it was something that had been on the back burner for ages. I got tunes, I just didn't know what to do with it. So yeah, I took the plunge on that note.
Well, I'm really excited to talk about the new album that you've got coming out, Good Cop, Bad Cop. But just to hover around, just playing with Rev for a little bit, what was it like to take a bit of to be at the side of the stage playing bass?
Contrary to popular belief, I really enjoyed it. I don't think everyone believes me when I say that. Like,
why? Why don't people believe it?
Because I think even John himself, I think because I'm a front man. Yeah. I think people and I'm outspoken and whatnot, and I do my own thing, and I do my own Christmas gig.
Yeah.
I don't know. People tend to think like, "What didn't you want to sing?" I'm like, "No, I did not want to sing. I didn't want to sing. I wanted to play bass well, which I did. I wanted to sit in the back of the van. I wanted no consultation over anything. I just wanted to play some gigs because when you peel it back, that's a huge part of the enjoyment. Like I was saying before, just playing in front of a crowd that are appreciating what you do. And we did loads of good stuff and loads of great gigs. So yeah, no, I loved not being the one to go to sort of thing, or to do the interviews. No offense, or to make decisions or whatever. I just turned up and got paid for what I did and did it as good as I could.
Yeah, so I went just so I can keep the timeline in my head a little bit. What years were it that you were in Rev and the Makers?
Between about 2012, I think, and 2021. It's about 9 years, I think.
Oh wow, yeah, a long time, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
And in the meantime, you built up your Christmas gigs, which I love. I love seeing the video for them every year. My favorite was the Bracknell one last year. I thought that was fantastic. I always remember when Joe's announcing a new Christmas gig because it's always going to be funny.
Yeah, well, I've kind of bottled it this year. I just did a little bit of a montage of last year, just because I wanted to get the sort of vibe across to people. But yeah, I did go through a period of trying to make funny ones, which actually they were pretty good. And I've probably put too much pressure on myself every year to deliver some sort of comedy 30 seconds, but I'll get back on it next year.
Yeah, so how does that feel like just a personal project? Your Joe Carnall's friends Christmas at friend. Oh God, what's it? How do you word it?
Joe Carnall? No, Joe Carnall Jr. and friends. That's what I do.
It's always around Christmas, and it always comes out, and it's grown nicely over the years, hasn't it? Where you sell out at Sheffield O2 Academy. Hope the venue is going to be okay, by the way, as well.
Oh yeah, so do I. That started as a bit of an accident. I did the very first one upstairs in the Shakespeare. Do you know where that is?
Yeah. I went to see Mike Hughes.
Did you? Yeah.
A few years ago when he was still up in Sheffield, with Before Breakfast. I think the last time I went to that venue quite a while ago.
Yeah, I didn't realize it still did gigs, but apparently it's back on. Yeah. Stuff. So that's a nice little room upstairs, and that was just like, I don't know, I'll do something. I wanted to do a gig. I could barely play guitar. I can't really play now, but I really couldn't then. And people showed up, and it went nuts. I think people had been starved of the Milburn thing, so they just wanted to sing along. And someone behind the bar, the landlady, ran up and said, "You're gonna have to stop because the ceiling's caving in," because people were bouncing around. And that's when I realized that people still really want this. So, like you say, you just got every year was a bigger venue. I moved venues quite a lot, and I really enjoyed that because it kept it fresh. But we've arrived at the O2 for the last 3 or 4 years just because it's the right size, and there's not many other venues in Sheffield that can offer it. And it's just, it's been amazing. People just showing up from all over, like friends I've met along the way, people I've known for years.
I've been to a
Just
couple, and I'm
jumping
always
up.
surprised how you try and top the year before, because I can remember seeing Self Esteem there with you, and John's there, Ed Cousins, all these names of the Sheffield supporting
Yeah,
you. That must have been really nice as well.
it's been great. Yeah, and you're right. It's really hard to sort of try and better. I need to get out and make more friends. This is my problem.
Yeah, right.
But I don't get out of the house as much these days. Yeah. So Rebecca Self Esteem did it before she was Self Esteem. Really, like she just released a record, but she wasn't what everyone knows today, which is quite sweet. I love it how she did it before she was this thing, and then last year she came back and did it again. Do you know what I mean? Tom Grennan did it when
Yeah.
he was just coming up, which was cool. Yeah, I've had loads of people. Matt from the Pigeons come down, sing a cut. He was Jarvis Cocker for a night, which was cool. I've had loads of different people come aboard. So it's just like you say, it's really hard to try and top the year before. But I don't know what I've kind of chilled out a little bit because I realised that people just want to have a great time anyway. It's 2 days before Christmas, so people just want to have a load of fun. So don't obviously I want the gig to be great, but people are there because it's Christmas and they just want to have a good sing song. So it will be what it will be.
Is there anything you can tease for it? There's a link in the description to tickets within this podcast as well, ladies and gentlemen, if you fancy it. Is there anything
professional? Absolutely not. No, because I never know what's going to happen until about 2 days before.
Fair enough.
I'm not that organized. But it's always good, and that's what matters.
Yeah. No, brilliant. Well, so Milburn came back. You had your big return. Did you kind of get that out your system just before we move on to Good Cop, Bad Cop? Because I know I'm passionate to know about this album. I'm desperate to know about it. But just to touch on the Milburn return, you did your 5 or 6 nights at the O2. You came back, went out on tour again. Did it kind of like was it you brought an album out? Did that kind of like give you closure for that a little bit, or is it still?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I'm not saying it's done. Because I think it'll never be done because we made that mistake once before. It just might be like this dormant volcano for a long time. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we kind of got a little bit of attention, let's say, or we got the gigs we sort of deserved in the end. It was just quite a nice story, really. Having not really hung out with each other for the best part of 10 years.
Yeah.
Probably because we have been so close, it's hard to sort of redefine your relationship when you're not in a band together. And then it was really nice to do these amazing gigs with my old mates and my brother again. And we did when those gigs were selling out in Sheffield, it was pretty ridiculous. I think we did best part of 10,000 tickets coming back. From a little indie band that just used to want to copy others, it's a bit of an up yours, isn't it? And we've probably, ironically, outlasted the enemy, in paper form anyway. And maybe journalists that had certain opinions. Not that I really couldn't care less anymore, to be quite honest. But there's a bit of sweetness to it, I suppose.
Nice one. So, have you always had an itch to do? So, where did the itch for Good Cop, Bad Cop start from? How did that create itself? How did that?
It was out of necessity and out of a necessity of. I still want to make music, but as you get older, it's quite difficult to get everyone in a room together, even if you've got mates that are musicians, and not that desirable. Like I say, I don't want to go down to a practice room in the middle of winter for a couple of hours after teaching all day. I just don't want to do it. So it was just something I sort of came up with him on my own on my laptop, messing around, and I think that was beneficial because it made me program a lot of drums. It made me program a lot of sounds. It made me do a lot of things on keyboards and synths, which I think pushed the sound in a different direction. And I'm sort of really gone for that like synthy thing, like 808 drum machines, and just explored that a little bit. So yeah, I'm always going to write songs. It's kind of what I do. But Good Cop, Bad Cop's forced me to do it in a different way. And to me, it sounds fresh and it sounds interesting and it sounds like now. I'm not trying to recreate indie bangers from 2003. I'm just trying to write tunes that a 36-year-old fella would write about his life.
So, when was the first time you brought a Good Cop Bad Cop record out? How many years
So
ago?
that was 2019. I went to LA to record it. I mean, I don't help myself with the Monkeys thing. I mean,
Well, I
I
was
made
going to
the,
ask you about the Matt Helders link.
yeah, I made the first record with Matt.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, again, looking back, is an amazing thing to have done. He just had his garage converted into a studio, as you do. Um, and I am the one and only thing that's ever been recorded there.
Okay.
Because shortly after he split up with his missus and sold his house.
Right, okay.
so, so I have that accolade. So yeah, I went over to LA for a month, one dark January. I wasn't teaching at this point. I sort of had having some time off. And made the record, and it was one of the best things I ever did. Not being in this country in January was great, and just having the time to really put into my music. And I was really like blown away with the results. And hopefully it progressed my sound and what I'm about, and challenged me to look at things a different way. So that was 2018-19. And then like life gets in the way. I'm three kids. I'm three kids in now.
Okay.
And stopping, just for the record. If you're watching this, Mrs. Carnall, we are stopping. So that's yeah, I think so. Okay. After the last couple of nights, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Long nights. Yeah. And so the time's been. I started writing some tunes. I had them on my laptop, and I just thought, right, if I don't get these done, they'll just forever sit eternally in some folder on my laptop, and I hate that idea. I hate it. So I decided to do another one, and I think the timing was right. You know, there's been a few years since the last record. And again, don't help myself. I ended up doing it with Gold Teeth, which is Rob's brother, Andy Nicholson, the original bass player from the Arctic Monkeys. That's just how it is.
You've got yourself to blame, Joe.
I know. We're all old friends, and they're the only two guys I know who've got the bloody time and the money to put a couple of weeks aside for me.
I did find it quite, and I can appreciate this being frustrating for you, that when you started to do a few Good Cop Bad Cop gigs, people were expecting Matt Elders to be there online.
Oh no, yeah.
Just because he produced it, people thought, "Oh, there's going to be a monkey there."
Yeah, it's amazing how many times you have to spell it out. I spell it out in 3 or 4 different ways.
I can remember you doing it. Yeah,
and I was even contacting the promoters saying, because like the promoters were quite happy to flirt with the truth for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. But I think even Matt's manager got angry at one point, and I'm like, look, I have said, it's plain black and white. I have clearly said what's going on. So by the end of the tour, I was introducing each member of the band as not Matt Helders, to the sarcastic applause. But what can you do?
Yeah, no. Well, I know about Gold Teeth music. Is it Clubs and Spades? Is my favorite tune that he did quite a few years ago, I think. Is it Clubs and Spades?
It was in like a thing called Card Gang. He was in once, wasn't he? And he's still making music. Back to the Good Cop stuff. He set a studio up in his back room of his new house, and we just sort of made it in his back room, because I was dead keen not to have a big live drum setup and a big live room and a big expensive studio, because for the music I'm making and I want to make, I really don't need it. I want to be forced into doing stuff by the instruments that are around me and what I can use. So we made it in his back room with a couple of synths, drum machines, and even for the drums, we'd get drummers. We'd use 2 or 3 drummers to record themselves, and I'd say to them, look, don't even listen to the song really. We've got a rough idea of a beat. Just play along for a little bit, and all we're going to do is go into your audio file and we're going to chop it all up anyway, because we sort of wanted to make the drums feel a bit more electronic and a bit different. So we didn't want anyone to learn anything.
Yeah. And
that was really liberating and really quick and really creative, because then Andy could get the drum sounds back and then just piss around. And we, no one had to book out like a £500 a day studio to get a perfect drum sound. We weren't really bothered, because we were going to mess around with all the sounds anyway. So yeah, really, really proud of this one. It's sort of my most introspective, honest thing I've ever written. And yeah, it's not really
what kind of thing? What kind of messages do you touch on with these stuff?
well, like always, it's kind of I think I said it. I said this in a different interview. It's writing songs for me now. I've come to realize why I do it, and it's just like it's essentially therapy, isn't it? If I'm not trying to. No one's going to listen to me about Israel and Palestine, and it's not really my role anyway. I will give an opinion when asked, but who cares about Joe Carnall's opinion on that? But what I am an expert in is what's going through my own head and my own life, and hopefully people will relate. So yeah, like in the last 3 or 4 years, it's fatherhood, it's death. I've had been some really bad times recently. It's why the song, the Marble Zone, is about actually writing songs. The new record's called Welcome to the Marble Zone, which is a reference to the Sonic level back when we were playing the Mega Drive in the 90s. But I almost see songwriting as a bit of a game now. It's just a game I can't stop playing. So a couple of the songs are almost like the opening track, Marble Zone, is about me writing songs, and what goes through my head and how I do it and why I do it and the space I come in to do it. And when I've written a song, it's the equivalent. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but it's the equivalent of like having been for a run or a long walk. There's some sort of clarity there afterwards, and I just feel so much better. And if I think I've written something of quality, I've probably loads of endorphins are probably released. I don't know what it is, but it's better than going to the pub, innit? And it's much cheaper.
Is it by recording things a different way and completely surrounding yourself in a different space to make new music? Has that caused you to go in a different direction to where you thought you might go sometimes?
Yeah, it makes you push the boundaries a little bit of sounds, and not having people there to play the instruments is kind of like, well, you've got to do it. So, and you haven't got this instrument, so you're best using a different instrument. Yeah. And yeah, and it's led me to get into like different artists. So I've been listening for this last record. I don't know, I've got a playlist somewhere, but a bit of craft work in there. And I really got into. You might not think it. You might not think it's too much of a distance for me anyway. But I really started to enjoy New Order. Go back and listen to New Order a bit more, because I love how they sort of blended that dance thing, that synth thing, with just sort of good pop records. Yeah, Duran. Who else? That I know that is a bit odd. But yeah.
Any places that you thought, oh God, I don't like this space? Did it take you any places?
I normally do that to myself with my songwriting. I'm obsessed with. I'm a little bit obsessed with melody. My sort of ultimate, for me, the greatest sort of melody maker of our generation is Julian Casablancas. And how he just layers sort of chorus upon chorus upon chorus upon chorus, which is kind of addictive. So yeah, I have to sort of stop myself from doing that, and sometimes realize that less is more and space is fine. And actually, this song doesn't need a chorus, and you can just go back to just the groove or whatever. Something like you get from like a Talking Heads, maybe, because I don't know if you've seen the reissue of Stop Making Sense, but it's incredible. And then you realize that all their songs, they're just a groove, and he just does different things over that groove. And just knowing that actually, just sometimes being a bit relentless with something, it's got that hypnotic quality that I didn't always realize. I always just thought, well, the song has to go here, then there, and then it has to move. But it doesn't actually, because the human ear loves something repetitive just to sort of set into and settle into.
Now it's finished, would you change anything now after you've heard it a few times after?
No, because I don't think you can ever say that. I don't think it's fair to say that. Yeah. I think you end up turning into the Lars, don't you?
Okay.
Re-recorded that record about 6 times. Yeah, no, I think you've just got to leave it and accept that it was a moment in time. It's only ever a moment in time, and you just you capture that. It's like a photograph, and you move on, and it's parts, and it's done. I think all great art is done that way. I'm not saying it's great art, but it's art of some form.
What happens inside you to know that you're finished? It's right. I'm putting it down. What 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 goes on in your head to just?
Uh,
I
it's
think we're
just a,
done.
it's just a feeling. Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
feeling. It's like we've got in this sort of like the songs in this guise in this mold. I don't want to write another one in this mold, so we're done.
Yeah.
Do you know when it ceases to be exciting? It's like, well, I've got a really good tune like that. I'm starting, and it did happen on this. There's a song that didn't make it on the record because it just sounded like a weaker version of what's already there.
Okay.
And I was like, well, just no. If I think like that, then no one else is going to bloody like it. Yeah, you're just ready to sort of move on from that collection of sounds, or just so I've not really written a song since. I've done a few bits, sort of little daft ideas, and that's all right. I've sort of learned that when it's right and the time's right, I'll be able to write tunes because I always have done. But you've got to want to do it, and you've got to have something to write about. So yeah, it was just felt right to. I got my 10, 11 tunes that we're happy with. You know, I'm not one to write 50 songs. It actually infuriates me when people say that, which is possibly wrong. But I'm like, why are you having to write 50? Like, 40 of them are going to be shy. Like, what I'll do is I'll start to write something and I'll just bin it off. And in my head, I've saved myself about 3 weeks' work there.
Okay, so you do hear a lot of people that never chuck anything away, and they've just got WAV files and have been over there somewhere that they'll dip in. They're lacking ideas or something like that, but that's not how
yeah.
you.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. What I'm saying is I just don't pursue it. If I do a little bit and I'm like, and if I don't, in my head, if I don't think about it like 3 days later, just it pops back into my head. It's not worth knowing. So I probably do write loads of songs, but I write loads of half songs and then just think, nah, not bothered. And I just think the practice of writing, for this album we wrote 80 songs. It's like, well, how impersonal, how sort of vacuous, how sort of factory created music. It does. Can you tell it angers me a little bit?
Yeah.
Because you can't have 80 genuine tunes about things that move you. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just being stuck in my ways, but
I just think this is fascinating. The process is fascinating, and it never gets. It's different for everybody, and that's why I love speaking to so many different people every week on this podcast, because everybody's different. Everybody does it their own way. It's just fascinating to see your process, and now you've created this, amazing new album that's on its way.
Well, yeah, I suppose the counter to that is I could work harder and I could write more tunes.
Fair enough.
But life is where it is for me, and I made this record in 3 weeks. I only have a finite amount of time to give to it. I'd love to give more, but maybe it works because I don't have more time, and I've just got to invest everything I've got at that moment.
Just on Andy's work on the album there.
Yeah.
What Andy Dust did he sprinkle on it? What extras did he bring to the album, having Andy part of it?
So what from his time in music, after his experiences, he went a totally different way sonically. He was always someone to come down more of a hip hop route, and more samples and guest vocalist and all that. And that's why I wanted to work with him, because I didn't want to work with an indie producer, because we'd just make another indie record. And by indie, I mean like a guitar led thing. And I kind of said to him, these are the tunes. They're all pretty much mapped out, and I'm pretty confident in structures and melodies and stuff like that. But he was definitely a producer on it. Like, well, what if we just use this sound? What if I make the drums sound like a hip hop kit? What if I take some kick drums out of this to give it a bit more room? And what if I do this edit where it sort of staggers a little bit, and just things that he'd do to his tunes, which give it a bit of flavor, a bit of like a hip hop vibe maybe. And also it's really important to work with someone you trust. And for me, you don't have to have known them for a long time, but you feel like you can say what you want and connect, and you get each other. And Andy, obviously, he did that for me, because we've known each other for now best part of 20 years, which is quite scary.
Yeah. Well, what would you say to people that are hovering over the pre-save link for the new album now, mate, because the link is in the description of this podcast to pre. You can get Marble Zone the single. You can get Welcome to the Marble Zone the album. The links are all in the description. What would you say to these people that are hovering over it, Joe?
Oh God, this is like a UNICEF plea, isn't it?
Gun to head, just buy it.
Yeah. What would I say?
Buy it.
I would say on like quite a I don't know, in an artistic sense, I always say this, but it's probably the best collection of songs I feel I've written. In terms of like the lyrical content, I think I've tried to push myself out of my comfort zone, so it's definitely worth a listen. If you like it, if you do, if you don't, you can bollocks. That's always been my attitude, and I think it should be everyone's attitude. You know, we shouldn't try to compromise or try and change what we do. But yeah, you should definitely buy it, because more to the fact, and I need to do more of this. Like, selling stuff is really hard now, and it's horrible even talking about it. I hate talking about money and selling stuff, but you can. It's part of the world that the music industry's in. You know, it was really uncool for bands to come and say buy our record, because they didn't need to when you sold thousands upon thousands. But now we don't. Like, if you get this vinyl, you're owning something that not many people will have. Because most people choose to stream it, and from that stream we get about 0.001 pence per stream, so it's kind of pointless for us. And just selling a few of these things means that I can make another one, and that's the truth of it. Like, I am not making this record to make money. I got to work to make most of my money, and that's not a problem. That's what everyone does, and that's fine. But if I want to be serious about doing more Good Cop Bad Cop or whatever other projects, yeah, fundamentally, you need to sell a few bits of wax, and other bits and bobs, and most people appreciate that, and there's a lot of love gone into it, and hopefully you can hear it. But there's my plea.
There we go.
Do what you want, like whatever.
Last question, Joe, just before I go. Do any of your kids that you teach, do any of them know about your music? Any Milburn fans in there or like that, or Good Cop Bad Cop fans?
It's weird that, because I've moved from a few different schools recently, but I'm now in one in Sheffield, and I have been for a few years. I don't say anything. I don't, like, someone might pop in, "You're in a band, aren't you, sir?" And I'll just say, "No, I don't know what you're on about." I'll try and I'll try and pad it off for as long as possible, mainly because I just can't be bothered. Like, there's loads to be getting on with, and you need to do your work. But if someone comes in with a genuine sort of like, "My dad knows your band and he loves it," and I've listened to it, then I'm like, I obviously will engage, because I'm not a moron. But I'm not like, I don't want to be selling my music to 13-year-old kids.
I was just
who don't have any taste in music themselves. You know what I mean? You've got to earn this right, mate. But it's quite funny, and then like, obviously someone will pick up on it eventually, and then it'll go around school. That's Sirs in a video. So I had the tune Three Things, that I had that's on YouTube. I wrote a song a few years ago, and for about 18 months, my form, two lads in my form every morning would just sit there and go, "There are three things." That's it every single day. And I did all good not to throw them out the window, but they've sort of given up now, because I'm like, lads, give it a rest, man. But yeah, if people are into the music and they want to talk properly about music, then I'll do it. Like, I'll put on, "Oh, this is what I used to listen to. Have you heard of this?" You know, I'll try and do that sort of like dad teachy thing where, well, I'm not playing any modern stuff because that's your job, but I'll play some like Clash, or I'll play you some Lizzie, or I'll play you whatever, because you might not have heard of it. And I think that's an amazing power to have, isn't it, over like a younger generation? Like, have you heard of this before? And you can remember where you were when you first heard Abbey Road or something like that. That's what an amazing treat to be able to give someone. And I feel like that about history. Like, if I'm the first person to tell these kids about, I don't know, like the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and how World War One kicked off. You only get to tell them that once, and it's a great story. And it's the same with music. It's like, I'll be the first person to introduce you to that, which is quite cool.
Well said, mate. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you joining us for a chat today on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Have you got much on for the rest of your day today? You got lots?
I have a massive pile of A-level marking about the economic and social policies of JFK.
Oh, right.
So there you go. So it's not too boring, but 40 of them it gets there.
Autopilot. Yeah, got you. Well, Joe, really appreciate you joining us on the podcast this week. Really looking forward to the album. As I've mentioned a few times, click on the link in the descriptions to go and see him in Sheffield at the Christmas gig. The single Marble Zone, the album To the Marble Zone, Welcome to the Marble Zone, sorry. There's loads of links in there for you to enjoy Joe's stuff, and we'll stick a Milburn link in there, and also people can have a
why not?
Okay, that why not, mate. But yeah, thanks again, pal. Nice one.
Thanks for your time. Cheers. Nice one.